Welcome to the 145 Rural Podcast, where we are here to strengthen music careers and communities one song at a time. And now, here's your host, Jacob Wing. Yay!
All right, so welcome to the 145 Podcast Show. Appreciate having you here. We have Tanner Laws with us here today.
Yep.
And pretty excited to have him. He's our first interview, and we made a big choice on having him first for a big reason. He knows a lot about being a hard-time working musician and really appreciate. And we want to see what we can pick out of your brain.
All right, yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So let's just start with the basics. Why did you start with music?
I always loved music growing up, loved singing, mostly just like in the car, in the shower, at church, that kind of stuff, but I always loved it and never really thought I'd ever do it for money or as a career, but here we are now. I think the creative part of it is something that's new. I definitely never thought I'd be on that part of it. I always just like singing along to other people's songs.
So when was that moment that you went from I like this to I want to do this as a career?
I think it was like a two-part. I think the first one was I had some friends that convinced me to sing at our high school talent show when I was a junior, and I did pretty good and heard a recording and it sounded good, and I was like, oh, I didn't know I sounded that good. So that was kind of a spark of like I didn't know I kind of had that talent, but then I kind of went away from it and didn't really ever perform in front of crowds until I got to college and I wanted to learn guitar, so I started learning guitar, started playing in front of friends and family and writing some of my own songs. And once they started telling me they thought they were good, I thought I'd start doing it in front of people. Mm-hmm. And I think the last spark was like when strangers started telling me they liked my stuff.
That's what pushed it over the top?
That's kind of what pushed it, yeah, when people I didn't know were giving me that confidence boost. Yeah.
So we got to that point. So what would you say, going to that and you're ready to do it, what was your biggest hurdle from that point where you just had to make that choice of I'm not full-time and going full-time? What has been your biggest hurdle till now?
The biggest hurdle for me was definitely a little over a year ago. When I quit my full-time engineering job, that was a big, scary step. Lots of sleepless nights for sure.
I bet.
Yeah, going from something so safe and secure and well-paying and all that to really just taking a leap of faith, that was scary for sure. But it wasn't too bad because I'd been performing on weekends for about 2-3 years, and I did that for my last 2 years of college, kind of helped pay groceries and rent back in college. So it's like I was performing, but it was in really small bars, not much tips, didn't pay very much, but really stepping out and just venturing out. After college, I started asking around about playing at other places, and I didn't have, manager or anything, so I'm just emailing and Facebook messaging and Instagram messaging as many places as I can. And 1 out of every 20, I'll get a response. And it's still like that sometimes, but as long as you keep sending out a ton, you'll hear back from some, and some people will give you a chance to take a shot on you. And I was lucky enough to have some people take a chance on me.
That's awesome. So what would you say as your career as a whole? So you make that choice, you jump in. What would you call your biggest success to date?
I think my biggest success to date, I'd say, is just kind of going for it on recording songs and getting them out on Spotify and Apple Music and stuff, because 2-3 years ago, I had no idea what the process was to do that kind of thing or how to even go about it, and never even really thought about it. But my friends would keep saying, we like your songs, but we're tired of having to dig through Instagram or YouTube or something to go find them.
I hear that a lot, yeah.
So like they said, hey, you should just record it and put them on those streaming platforms. And I think that's really cool that people can do that now. They can just go and listen to my songs and download them and listen to them anytime they want.
Awesome. So does it feel like your fan base has been growing that way a bit?
Yeah, some days it seems like it's in a lull, like it's not, but it is. And I definitely would say getting your songs recorded and out on those streaming platforms is a must if you want to grow as a musician and like grow your fan base for sure. That's definitely something you have to do to make it easy on them to find your stuff.
Makes a lot of sense, really does. So if you could talk to yourself a couple of years ago before you ever jumped all in, what would you think would be your best advice if you just had like 5 minutes in the past with yourself, sit down and say, here is something you should focus on, or here's how to get over a hurdle you're going to hit. What would you think would be, something you'd tell your older self?
I would say just not be scared to take chances and just go for it. Make as many connections as you can. That's a huge thing.
That's a good one.
Making as many connections as you can, because sometimes you're going to have to burn bridges. That's going to happen, but the more connections you make, the more opportunities will present themselves, and the more opportunities you take advantage of, the better you'll get as a musician, the more connections you'll make, and it kind of, that ripple effect, the more effect you'll have on other people and they'll have on you.
Makes a lot of sense. Really good advice there. So how about, since we're talking to an audience, some of the people that'll be listening to this or seeing you will not have been able to go into the studio for the first time or take that step. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a bit about that. You've worked in multiple studios. You've done multiple albums. I think you have at least 8 singles out right now that you've done to date. What is it like going into the studio for the first time? Talk about, the feelings that you had going in, and now, what would you tell somebody else going in for the first time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, if you haven't been in one before, it could probably be a little bit intimidating for sure. When you come in, you see all the equipment that they use that you aren't familiar with, or whatever kind of system they use is their DAW. And I'd say just make sure your songs are all prepared. What I did, I think, for my very first one is I was really over prepared. I printed out whatever songs I planned on recording that day, printed out all the lyrics, labeled the verses and the choruses. That way I could give them to the whoever was recording, the producer, and they would know like when those changes are going to happen, just in case you wanted to add other instruments on it. Because a lot of my songs starting out were just acoustic, but with ones that I wanted other instruments, it made it easier on them to know when the changes in the song were going to happen. So I'd say be prepared with like a script kind of what songs you're planning on recording. Make sure your voice is warmed up before you get there a little bit. Make sure your guitar is in tuned at the minimum. Another thing you told me was to, if you can, get some new strings on, like maybe one day before.
Mm-hmm. Does make a difference.
That's great advice too. It does make a big difference. Then the other thing is, I guess if you are planning on adding other instrumentation besides your vocals and your guitar, maybe kind of have an idea in your head what other instruments and where at you would like them to kind of show off or do solos or whatever you plan on.
I remember working with you. You just say musical break. That was fantastic. It's like, I want something here, and then we'd kind of discuss afterwards. I want something here. Or I'm hearing guitar here, and some pedal still here. That works really great. Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. Let's talk about. Let's see. Ooh, that's a great one. How about, when did you find your voice? When did you find what makes Tanner Tanner?
Yeah, okay. So this one, and I hear this from other people, like when I'm listening to other artists, friends that are with me will be like, I like them and they sound good, but they try too hard to sound like somebody else. They try too hard to sound like the original artist of whatever song they're covering. And I think I did that a little bit when I was first starting out, like when I was just playing at some small bars, or first time I played at like our county fair. I think I kind of did that when I covered a song. I tried to sound more like the original artist. And I think I found my voice when I started writing my own originals and performing those. Because when you're singing your own song, you can't sound like anyone else but yourself. You have no other reference really. So the more I sang and performed my original songs, I think that's how I found my own voice. And then that made it easier for me to go from my song to another person's song, and I would just sing it like I sang my original song. So it kind of sounded like I had my own twist on it now.
Makes a lot of sense. So if you had to sum up in like just one sentence, what would you say if you're just defining yourself? This is what Tanner Laws is. What would you say musically?
I would say don't try to confine yourself by a genre, because I've done that before. It's like, this country or is this not country? And so I think don't confine yourself by a genre. Just sing the way you want to sing it and how you think sounds good.
Now that is fantastic.
Nice
I
and
love
simple.
it. I absolutely love it. How about the episode that's going to come out right before this? That if anybody's listening or watching in a linear fashion, or in chronological fashion, it's all about that balance, finding that balance in life, in your music, all that kind of stuff. Have you had any struggles in yours trying to balance your personal life or your outside work life, your career, or anything like that?
I mean, a little bit. I perform, now that I'm doing music full time, I perform every Friday, Saturday, basically. And then in the summertime, I play during the weekdays a lot. So it's like, it's pretty close to having a full-time job. You're just switching the days off. And that makes it hard to meet with the people you would usually meet with, because most people have a 9 to 5, on a weekday. And mine's kind of opposite of that. They have the weekends off. I don't have the weekends
Right.
off. So it definitely makes it harder to meet up with people that you usually would, depending on their schedules. But the nice thing about it is I make my own schedule, so I can decide if I want to take certain days off, and I kind of do that with birthdays and holidays or any kind of special event. And it's
That is
nice that I
nice.
can
Yeah,
do
that
that.
is nice.
To make time for the people that matter.
What about relationships? Does that make it difficult for that at all?
Not really. I wouldn't say so.
Yeah.
I mean, you make the time where you can, and if you want to make the time, then you do.
Makes a lot of sense. Awesome. So let's talk about you. What's something that you are personally working on right now?
Well, right now so I haven't released any music since, when was that album? Was that the end of the summer? Maybe like September or October?
Around fall.
Yeah, okay. So probably around September was my last release. So since then I've been busy on the road still, but I've been writing songs here and there, and I was in a slump for sure. I could not finish a song for my life. I could start as many as possible.
Right. So that's like the winter hibernation.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I had I still have about 50 or 60 half finished or 3/4 finished songs. But there was one I wrote this hunting season where it was just one of those days where everything clicked, and I finished it in about a week. And so I think my next project is probably going to be recording that new hunting song and releasing it as a single.
Awesome. So let's go straight from that. That's fantastic. Let's talk about your writing process. What is it like? Where do you start? How do you know when you have an idea? Do you start with the music? Does the concept come to you?
I'd say it's definitely different for not every song, but a lot of songs are different. Like that one that I just said I finished that happened super quick was I went out, it was hunting season. I went out with a real good family friend, and I don't know, just being out in nature is always something that's really inspirational to me. It's easy to spark that interest. And so we got back from hunting, and I just kind of took it all in. It wasn't a successful hunt, but
Right.
gosh, being outside,
Right,
being out in
being
the
out.
mountains, and so it just kind of sparked an interest and an idea. And I went home, and I was still on that slump. I couldn't write nothing, so I was kind of like playing around on my guitar. I had one line actually, is what it was, because we were hiking up to our hunting spot. It was maybe 5:36 a.m. Sun hadn't come up yet, but I thought of a line while I was walking, because it was so cold outside. My sweat was freezing into ice, and I was like, man, this is a vivid thing if you could make someone think about this in a song. So I kind of wrote one line, got home, found a key I liked, and found some chords I liked, and played along till I started to just hear a melody in my head.
Yeah, right.
And from there, I just started throwing in some lyrics.
That's great. So when do you know? When do you know you have a good song? And when do you know when it's finished?
I know I got a good song when it's either catchy. I love the lyrics in it. So that's a big thing to me, is having good lyrics. So catchy, good lyrics. The chorus stands out, kind of makes you just want to sing along really well. And then I know it's finished when it's like start from point A, get to point B, but if it comes full circle, like I'm a big time into storytelling. So, for example, this hunting song is it's literally just about the hunt. So it starts off the beginning of the hunt. The story of the song is all the things you have to overcome, and then the end of the song is like at the end when you get the animal or you don't get the animal, and
Right.
there's just so many ways you can go with it. But I know it's a finished song when you've gotten the point across that you want to get, and you've hit the chorus. You don't have to have choruses in songs, but if you do have a chorus, I think after you've hit it 2 or at least 3 times,
Right,
then you know
right,
you're
right.
getting close to the end.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's one of my favorite things about your music, actually. Just that way you tell a story, the way you convey it. It puts you there. Mm-hmm. Close your eyes for 2 seconds. It's like you don't have a choice. You're there.
Thank you.
It
I
is
love
really
that.
great.
I
I
appreciate
do love that. And so, how about what's next for you? Anything exciting? I know we talked about your album. What's your next big thing? Shows, music. What's coming up for you this next year?
So another thing I learned after doing this for a little bit now, I'm still not very experienced, but I found right now we're in February. So January, February is when you wanna book your springtime stuff, like in January.
Ooh, that's some great advice.
And then by February, March, you want to be booking any summer gigs, because right now there's tons of venues that do live music in the summer that already have their summer schedule booked.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's
it's
a lot
only
of people
February.
don't think about that stuff.
Yeah, so you want to get out ahead of the game, because spring and summer are definitely like when the most live music is wanted, like when the summer or when the weather's good outside. So you definitely want to get ahead of the game and try to get as many gigs scheduled around January, February. Which,
That is just great advice, something everybody can just soak in a little bit.
Yep.
So I have just one last question for you concerning any of this. We talked about you going into the studio and how it was the first time, getting to work with you and getting to know you. You have an engineering degree. You're a very intelligent person. There's no reason you couldn't do what any audio engineer does if you truly wanted to. So can you maybe talk about why you chose to go into the studio instead of doing it by yourself and some of the benefits or how that might have helped a little bit?
Yeah. So when my first album I recorded, I was still doing engineering, so it was really just a matter of free time,
Right,
kind of.
yeah,
you
that
know?
makes sense.
Because I know it's fairly simple to build your own home studio, but then you got to go through learning the DAW that you're going to use, getting the equipment that you have, just so many things that you have to learn yourself. And it made it a lot easier for me to not have to think about that stuff and really just focus on the music itself, the songwriting, the lyrics, and coming up in my head with what other instrumentation I wanted to put in there. So it just made it way easier on me as the artist if someone else was spending, because I know how much time you spent on my stuff, and boy did I appreciate that, because if I was doing it myself, I don't think I ever would have got it recorded.
Yeah, there's definitely a time swap in there.
Oh,
that
yeah.
happens. And I think that's a huge thing too, when people like you who are so talented could do it. But I think you get to focus more on the creative end and perfecting your songs and not focusing on those 10,000 little things that you need to learn. So,
Yep. And I'd also say, like, definitely it's good to work with other people, because then you get to hear their input on it.
Right?
You don't always got to take their input, but if they,
Having somebody to bounce it back and forth with.
exactly, yeah. Because I mean, there was one of my songs on my first album that I recorded that I didn't, I forgot about. I wrote it and then put it in my notes, forgot about it for 2 years because I thought it sucked. I didn't think it was very good. And it's a lot of people's favorite song on that first album. So it's like, you might be getting in your head a little bit too much about some stuff. So that's when it comes in handy to have someone to talk to and hear their advice. Or if you're bouncing between a couple ideas or not sure if something sounds good or doesn't, it's nice to have someone else's input for sure.
Yeah, I could even think of a specific example where we were sitting there and you told me, hey, do you want to hear this song? And you were like, I don't know if I really want to do this. And then you sang it to me, and then every nerve in my brain started firing, and I knew we have to do something with this.
Yeah.
And I think about it being Close Your Eyes.
Yep, that's what it
a great
was.
song.
That's exactly
I
what
love
it
that
was.
song. It's just that kind of thing, where sometimes just having somebody else in the room can help.
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and to anybody else who's going to listen. and helping out the smaller artists and in the rural, out in the sticks.
Oh yeah.
So thank you so much
Yeah,
for taking the
appreciate you
time.
having me.
So before we go, if you want to take a second and tell everybody if they want to come out and see a show, where they can go to a website
Okay,
or
yep.
social media kind of thing.
Yeah, so I got I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, all under Tanner Laws Music. It's TANNERLAWS Music. On TikTok too, same thing, Tanner Laws Music. And then if you want to see my schedule where I'm performing, I post that on the social medias, and then also on my website at tannerlawsmusic.com. So that's where you can check out my schedule, see any kind of new music I got coming out, any updates, and what else do I got coming out? Oh, some merch too, some like t-shirts.
Oh yeah,
and
you got
some
to
hats
go
and
see this guy. You got to go see this guy live. He's amazing.
Thank you.
And if you didn't know, the whole time I was wearing my Tanner Laws hat.
Yeah.
You should go see this man. He is amazing. He is talented. And just
Thank
thanks
you.
again.
Appreciate it.
All right, talk to you later.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
Oh, hey there. Didn't see ya. Thank you for joining me on In the Round. In the Round. I don't know where that music came from. But anyways, this is our end of the video segment where we just take a second to thank you again for listening and watching. And also to thank those special people that make this possible, our Patreon supporters. As you can see, they are listed here. Yeah, They get the joke. We can stop now. Clearly, we don't have any supporters yet. We're just launching. But if you'd like to join our community and be one of the first few to jump in, we'd really appreciate it. And you could start to see an acorn blossom into a tree. So we'd really appreciate that help. If you'd like to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get more of this content, it should be down there somewhere. Or you can give us a like if you enjoyed the video. So thanks again, and see you again soon.